and we think this is very significant. This is just a taster document, because sitting behind this there are 44 very substantial action research reports, all of them available through the website. And this is a bit of a digest of the findings of those. But the reason we're so pleased with it is it's so optimistic. It's actually tells the story of communities achieving the most remarkable things in spite of bureaucracies and unhelpful funding streams and all the rest. And working with these people over the last few years, it's been very inspiring. And we've come to realise that although they're rural communities, there's a lot to learn actually for neighbourhoods everywhere. So this is becoming our little Bible, and it's truly inspiring. These successful communities have almost all undertaken their own community plans. We saw the most impressive example in Pembrokeshire. And an organisation there which works across Pembrokeshire has had 15 years of continuous work with 72 different communities, each doing their own community plans. Some of those communities are on their third action plan, having delivered all the ambitious plans in the earlier versions. You'll have noticed in all our publications we take a resolutely upbeat view of rural communities and rural areas. In the UK, the agenda has been hijacked a little bit by land and buildings and asset transfer from local authorities. We think it's not just about that, it's about people, culture, language, archaeology, landscape, geology. We call it fiery spirits because, rather like this person on the front, nothing happens without them. And everything good that ever happened in the community had a fiery spirit or two at the heart of it. So it's named after them. And Nick will take you on a little tour around our community practice, part of which is online and part of which is face-to-face.
There are people who really value being connected into good stories and interesting stories about practice. So the Eden film focuses on, well, what do you actually do? What makes setting up that fete and offering people tea and jam? You know, why does that work when a more programmatic approach that tends to get rehearsed by local authorities, say, to community planning? What's the key difference there? And how do we actually do more of the former and start to be a bit more creative with the latter? So we're very interested in developing new media of all kinds, recognising that some people learn best from film, some people learn best from face-to-face, some people are into Twitter, but we're not too hung up on any of them. Our sense is that from a broad social network, we start to develop community and practice. So these are communities of people who start to cluster around key themes. You know, a lot of the Rural Action Research Programme has been focused on specific themes, for example, inclusion or service delivery, or it might be, there are some strong key themes, say, around community resilience building starting to emerge all around the country. And so as people start to cluster through this broad social network, we enable them to get together and pursue those themes through action research, and we work with them to raise resources to pursue it.
Something very, very interesting is happening in the countryside in England, Scotland and Wales, and that is the rise of development trusts. In some ways, they're overshadowing parish and town councils and elected representatives. So we've been interested to look at what needs to happen for the two to work together, because actually they've got different functions.
excellent presentation, enjoyed it very much. I was going to ask about funding.
Yes.
I can see you can prime the pump, get it going, that's great. And the lady on egg, very interesting, they raised the money. What happens, do you have a model for the long term? What happens when the generator breaks? Who then pays for it? And presume it's the local community, but how do you make sure the whole thing doesn't then fall down 3 years later?
Yes. We have, for egg and the Scottish examples, a fantastic organisation called Community Energy Scotland. And they do all of the financial models for these schemes. It's happening because communities are doing it themselves. So there's a whole, I would imagine most of our community of practice are not the usual suspects at all.
Observation is that a lot of quite a few of the examples and energy and enthusiasm seem to be in the remoter rural areas, and which leads to the welcome, actually, from the perspective of the Commission for Rural Communities, which covers England, that very much welcome your intention to bring your focus and your lens more onto rural England. We have a lot of experience of working with parish and town councils and trying to help them raise their game. So we very much welcome working with you in the future.
Good afternoon. I'm very much into fruition in the manifesto. We're really excited about it. Big.
Stuart Burgess, thank you very much for those presentations. Very interesting feeding, especially the examples of good practice. I mean, I think in rural communities what we tend to do is not to sing the good things about rural